He goes up against Sintolol in the next matchup. Sintolol, one of the newcomers effectively to the HCT scene. Purple, quite the veteran so far, but Purple not feeling too confident. But before we get into that, let's just take a minute with Sottle, of course, to look at that previous match. There was a lot of tight spots there, even though Stan won 3-1.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really close moments up until probably the last few turns of that Druid game.
Right, and I think the most crucial part of the proceedings was the Rogue Mirror, because Stanadachi was up against Keleseth's Shadow Step from his opponent. And when that happens to you, you have to make sure you are tempoing as hard as you can, because you're never going to win on value. Eventually, you're going to get beaten up by huge minions. And this, for me, was the key turn that potentially decided the whole series. You see Stanadachi here plays a Firefly for 1 mana, when he has the option to play a 5/5 Corridor Creeper for 1 mana instead, essentially achieving the same turn. What that then enables him to do is on the following turn, of course, his Creeper gets discounted to 0. You saw he had a Vilespine Slayer in his hand, and that is the huge tempo swing that he needs if your opponent does something like, oh, I don't know, plays 2 5/6s for 4 mana, which is what he came up against.
That's a pretty good turn.
So, that's a play that shows a long level of discipline and a great understanding of like activating tempo over multiple turns and achieving maximum net tempo over the course of the game. Stan executed it perfectly, and that set him up to win the whole series.
Yeah, we expect nothing less from Stan, but let's move on to our next match we've got coming up. So let's welcome our first player to the stage. Well, the newcomers to HCT and the big stage itself, it's Sintolol.
Sintolol still very much an unproven entity on the HCT stage, but many people believe he has the best lineup for this tournament.
Yeah, and his opponent, a veteran from the scene, but acknowledging this could be his toughest matchup in the tournament, it's Purple.
Hearthstone's true mad scientist always brings his own twist to the play.
Let's do this! Sintolol versus Purple!
Purple is a really smart guy. He talks a lot and he thinks a lot, right? But I also think I'm favored against Purple.
Playing Sintolol, and yeah, the big mage line is pretty good against aggro, target aggro, so let's see how it goes.
He knows how it is to play on stage in front of a crowd. I never did that, so I don't know if I'll be nervous on the spot. Right now I'm not, which is good. Maybe he gets a little bit too cocky though. I don't know, that might happen.
Because I get him first, I'm most likely to get him twice, which is like very bad for me.
Sintolol versus Purple! Ready, set, go!
Some fireworks to start off day number 2 here in the Hearthstone World Championship live from Amsterdam, Netherlands. And the second series promised to be exactly the same, as we have Sintolol from Germany up against Purple from Canada. It's Purple's second time in the World Championship. Welcome everybody from the casting desk. My name is Frodan, joined by Kibler, and this best of 5 is where it starts getting real spicy.
Yeah, I've been really excited to see the decks today, specifically Sintolol's big mage deck. We heard a number of players talk about how they feel like that is one of the real surprises of this tournament that a lot of people didn't really respect enough. And Purple in particular feels like he has a really, really hard time fighting through this first match. His lineup is intended to try and beat up on other aggressive decks. Sintolol's lineup is primarily control.
Right, and of course, one of the things, the lineup thing was mixed up. Jade, Druid, and the Control Mage icons were need to be swapped, but Control Mage has made a lot of splashes in the past week of competitive play. If you're looking at a lot of the tour stops, which are happening in 2018, some of the changes to the Championship Tour, a lot of lineups are playing the Control Mage because they realize that it's very good against the Druid, Priest, Rogue, Warlock lineups, as long as you ban the Warlock.
Yeah, Control Mage has actually been the deck I have probably played the most since the release of Kobolds and Catacombs, so I was really excited to see a number of players chose to bring it here. It can really struggle. It's very difficult to build the Control Mage in such a way that it can compete at all with both Priest and Warlock. However, if you design your lineup such that you clearly can ban one of those, you get to choose. And you could build your deck with a focus on survival against Priest and not need to worry about the same long game plan of grinding out Warlock, which is virtually impossible.
Right, and I guess the slightly interesting thing that comes in here is that Sinto was able to be a forerunner to that thought. If you actually asked a lot of the players, maybe a few days ago, even before the tournament began, they felt like, yeah, if we had a few more days, I would have submitted Mage 2. And they're like, yeah, I would have too. But Sintolol is one of the forerunners, and he's going to be rewarded for that if this Mage performs as we expected to.
By the way, the Raven Familiar is particularly sweet against Tempo Rogue, where they only have 0-cost spells.
Yes.
So you're always going to win that that comparison. But this draw from Purple here, I think showcases a little bit of where his deck is weak in this matchup. He mentioned that he's playing an aggressive deck tuned to beat other aggressive decks. So these Tar Creepers, they're fantastic if your opponent is trying to attack you in the early game with minions. They're quite weak on the offense, and he's going to need to be on the offense here.
That's right. We had a chance to sit down with Sinto on what he thinks about the big spell mage. This is what he had to say.
I think a lot of people underestimated the power of the big spell mage, the control mage. Only 2 players brought it, and I think both lineups are pretty strong. So I'm looking forward to see how that deck will perform.
This guy's toast.
And we'll see how it performs, but it's going to go up against the Keleseth opening, which is pretty fearsome, considering that Purple has some pretty good tempo. But with things like, you know, Dragon's Fury available that can just clear so much of the board and just a ton of area of effect, it feels like it's going to be difficult for Purple to get damage in the mid-stage of the game. He has to really get a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, Purple did have the Keleseth early on, so his minions are going to be more powerful in the following turns. But he really does need to get damage in quickly, because once he does get to those mid to late turns where Blizzard gets online, Meteor gets online, he ends up very quickly being able to just get his entire board essentially killed each turn. And needs to be able to present multiple threats, so single target removal like Polymorph can't just deal with the one big thing he plays.
That's right. Multiple big targets, ideally tall and wide. You can't just pick one or the other. Now, Purple picks up some gas, and he does have this counterfeit coin that's sitting in his hand. It's something that Purple has been very outspoken about during our interviews with him. He was talking about how counterfeit coin is just so powerful in Rogue to help you get that extra tempo. But sitting in his hand for quite some time now, and you kind of have to wonder if you had better cards at his disposal. Some people, of course, want to play Scale Beans instead.
And here, Sintolol, he has not found Dragon's Fury. Dragon's Fury is the reason to play Big Spell Mage, essentially. You give up access to a lot of the cheap removal like Frostbolt in order to ensure that you are able to have consistent high damage Dragon's Furies. Sintolol is playing Ice Blocks, so he doesn't have a full suite of high cost spells, so there's the possibility that he did have Dragon's Fury, it could miss. But in a board like this, for instance, almost everything would be killed by a 3-damage Dragon's Fury anyway, but unfortunately for him, he doesn't have it. So he may feel the need to coin out a Blizzard or a Meteor here to just stem the bleeding, because the burst potential from Tempo Rogue can be pretty high. He does just go ahead and play the Tar Creeper, though, and Purple does not have a Vile Spine Slayer to sort of punish and get the damage through just yet.
Right. But this is, where ideally the counterfeit coin is supposed to help give you flexibility, right? Sinto's like, well, maybe if he doesn't have the Bone Mare, it's turn 6, that's where the counterfeit coin can help push it out a turn earlier. And all of a sudden, this coin save for the Flame Strike won't be nearly as potent.
Purple is recognizing here what are the removal spells that Sintolol can play at this point. And specifically, with the coin remaining in his hand, the Flame Strike, as you mentioned, is online. So Purple chooses to play one big minion that will survive that Flame Strike in the Corridor Creeper here. So Sintolol, without a Dragon's Fury, has no clean way to get everything off this board. He could, of course, Blizzard and slow things down. And that does soften up the Corridor Creeper to potentially die to the Flame Strike the following turn.
What to do?
That's what he chooses. He can't afford to take big chunks of damage from here on out because he doesn't have an Ice Block up yet. And the threat of, this is the coin coming up big here. Purple with the South Sea deck hand with coin Bone Mare available.
Yeah, that's the big payoff we're talking about and why Purple included into his deck. And at first we weren't sure because he's been holding on for a while, but having that extra mana when you can surprise your opponent is all the difference in the world, and I love this. By the way, patch is still not being drawn either. That is 3, 7, 9, 10 damage, and Sinto would be put to 2 health.
And that means that SI Agent in Purple's hand is lethal by itself. So Sintolol absolutely has to Ice Block this turn. Wow. He still doesn't have Dragon's Fury, so there's no possibility of Ice Block clear your board. There's also no additional Blizzard. He couldn't even Blizzard plus Ice Block this turn even with the coin.
Right, and here's also something to mention too, that even if he had Dragon's Fury, You know, he drew most of his expensive spell. He does have a Blizzard, which probably would have been a saving grace, but it's one of those interesting things where you drew every one of your spells, and none of the things are supposed to joust for it.
Yeah, Sintolol, I don't really see a way out of this for him. He can play the Ice Block, of course, and survive a turn, but he doesn't have the ability to Ice Block and clear the board, or Ice Block and freeze the board the following turn.
Right. What's his out here in this position? Because when Rogue, even if you clear the board, Rogue's hero power will be continue to threaten you, and without, you know, an actual way to guarantee your life total gets higher through Alexstrasza or Frosted Jaina, your opponent can just SI through the taunts. So even if you set up taunts, it's not going to matter.
To try and set up so that he can hope to find a way to clear this. But yeah, even with a draw of a Dragon's Fury here that clears the board, he does have the opportunity to play Dirty Rat into Dragon's Fury if he hits exactly a 5 and pings down the opposing side of the board.
Oh, right. Actually, he could pull the SI, and then the taunt gets in the way.
It is possible.
And then he has enough. Does he have enough mana to coin out the Tar Creeper? That'd be no. I think he's one mana
He's
short.
a little bit short, and that's a Dragon's Fury. So he does have. If he Dragon's Furies and hits a 6, he could play a Tar Creeper and, to his knowledge, stay alive.
But if he pulls Ice Block,
yeah,
which has he has an equal chance because the only big spell left in his deck is Blizzard, or actually the other Dragon's Fury.
But he would still need to ping down. There's Dragon's Fury, so they, thanks to the ping, the deckhand does die. And he's gonna hope that this is a handful of spells somehow.
He needed to pull the SI7 agent.
Yeah.
And that's gonna do it. Purple just barely gets over the hump. SI7 with a high jump. Gonna kick down this door and open up the series with a bang. A huge win for our Canadian player.
Yeah, Purple felt like this matchup was one of the ones that was very difficult for him in this lineup. This overall match is one that he really didn't want to face. We heard it in the interviews before, but he's taken the lead.
Mage's first game is a flop for Sinto, but there's still plenty more action. Purple is still have to fight an uphill battle as he faces a control lineup that he does not want to play against. We'll find out what happens in game number 2. Sintolol drops the first game, but what's going to happen when we come back here for a Hearthstone Championship Tour World Championships?
My name is Thomas Zimmer, 22 years old, from Bad Vilbel, Germany, and I go by Sintolol in-game. As a kid, I used to collect cards, but didn't play competitively. That just came later with Hearthstone. The moment I chose to give it competitively a try was when I watched the 2016 Winter Championships, because I saw my now good friend and practice partner Nixley play, and I thought, if he can do it, I can do it myself. So it takes some time, I think. Even if you're good at the game already, you need to find like a group of people to practice with. That's really important for tournaments and stuff like that. I think the support from home has been great. Like my close family, my mom and my bro, always support me at all times with their best will. It's great.
Selbstverständlich bin ich stolz auf meinen Sohn, dass er es geschafft hat, zur Weltmeisterschaft zu gelangen. Und das ist eine große Leistung und eine große Herausforderung, unter solchen langjährigen Spielern auch da mitzuspielen und die Chance zu bekommen. Ja.
I actually had to work a lot to be here, because I think the grinder spot, the last call spot, is the spot where you had to put the most work in to qualify for Worlds.
Oh, like, that's going to be a heck of a turn. He looks very frustrated, though. He must have milled it. Yeah, there it goes.
Well,
Oh, man.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I kind of think I need to prove myself on the tournament stage, because everyone knows me as the grinder guy that only plays ladder, open cups, is always in a call with 6 guys, so probably not the best on his own, but I think I can I think I'm one of the better players at Worlds, and I'm gonna prove it. I'm excited to play on the world stage and prove that I'm not just a ladder grinder, can win some tournament games. I'm aiming for top 4. I really don't want to drop in groups. I really don't want to drop in groups. You can't play too much Hearthstone, that's not possible. Hearthstone is great.
The last couple of years have been filled with plenty of ups and plenty of downs for Purple.
You lose more Hearthstone tournaments than you win by a very high ratio. That's the common result to lose. I want to win. I've been scraping and working towards getting my first one, second World Championship appearance. So I don't know how many more chances I get at this. So you know, the first World Championship I don't think was as big of a deal as this one.
No, that's not gonna be it.
Oh my goodness!
Wow,
Maybe he was
this
gonna take
Shaman
this
takes it.
series.
I was like, we'll just get another shot at it next year. But it's getting way more competitive, and it's very hard to qualify now. I think I'm actually just like worse at the game now than I used to be, where everyone's just better. 2017, like I gave everything I could to that tournament.
Purple is advancing to the World Championship.
I was like proud, I was happy, I was all the emotions. Something I learned that you should gratify wins a lot more than you should dwell on losses.
A lot of emotions running through Purple as he qualified for the World Championships back in summer season, as a lot of fans look on in anticipation that he is going to be able to upset Sinto. And we say upset, it's not because of their strengths or their skills or any relative playing abilities, because the fact that Sinto has a pretty good lineup against what Purple brought. But he was able to beat the Mage once, so I think maybe things are looking up for him.
Yeah, the Mage is definitely one of the decks in Sintolol's lineup that is generally strong against what Purple's trying to do. This one from Sintolol is another unusual choice. We've seen Priests in every match we've seen so far, but we haven't seen this one yet.
Yes, this is a dragon combo Priest, and I mean, there's dragons in the Mage, there's dragon in this Priest. I'm pretty sure I know who Kibler's rooting for in this series. But, you know, the big thing to focus on is whether or not Sintolol can even win the board against Aggro Druid, which can be a problematic thing for this Dragon Priest. But Aggro Druid does struggle against getting past those big walls if they're able to get set up.
Yeah, the big card here for Sintolol is going to be Duskbreaker. It's what he's looking for right now in order to give him early game defense against the wide boards that Purple's capable of.
Right.
But actually, just looking at Purple's hand right now, he has 2 copies of Mark of the Lotus, so it's actually possible for him to bring many of his minions out of range of the 3 damage that Duskbreaker will deal.
You know, most people kind of laugh at the idea of eating your own pirates with Galactic Crawler, but in a matchup like this, where Duskbreaker is really important, or Wild Pyromancer could potentially be problematic, I'm definitely down for building up a meteor board.
Yeah, and one of the big things here, the removal available to Sintolol in this deck is not the typical removal that you see in a lot of Priest decks. It's not a deck with a bunch of shadow words of whatever. It's a deck that has Potion of Madness to be able to steal your opponent's minions and give you the Divine Spirit Interfire just sudden kill. So these minions that are getting buffed up by the Mark of the Lotus, they're now out of range of the Duskbreaker, as I mentioned, all of them at least 4 health. And there's no direct removal for these. It's not something that Sintolol is just going to be able to pull out something other than a single copy of Mass Dispel in his deck, which would be huge at removing these buffs. Look at this, Potion of Madness, drawn against an aggressive deck. There's no minion small enough to take.
He's dead next turn because of Savage Roar. If Sintolol can't draw something big with this Powered Shield, and even then, I'm not sure what he's looking for. Maybe the Wild Pyromancer?
Pyromancer would not be enough. He only has 2 spells he can cast after that point. He can Divine Spirit Inner Fire here and get himself a 12-12, but he's still just going to die to Savage Roar.
He has 9 plus the 8, that's 17. He would have to Inner Fire, heal, and then heal himself, and then he stays alive. Sintolol's playing around the Savage Roar.
This does keep him alive here.
Wow.
But just barely.
Yeah, by 1 life. 17 damage available to purple.
And that's coming in, for sure.
Yeah.
And Sintolol realizes, okay, I kept myself alive, but how long will this last?
Yeah, just look at him. He's like, okay, wow, that's a lot of damage.
And there's no real way for him to get out of this life deficit here. He doesn't have big healing effects. You know, this is just going to the game, yeah.
Unbelievable, that was so quick. Sintolol is in desperation mode. At first we were thinking about whether that purple has a chance this series, and now it's flipped on its head.
So I actually kind of want to go back for a second. I was watching Purple and Sintolol watching Sintolol playing in an HCT qualifier, an online qualifier, just the other night. He was playing this deck against an aggro druid, and I said, the only way I lose if my opponent has double buff. And that was what happened then, and that's exactly what just happened again right now.
Sintolol out on a mission to prove that he is more than just a grinder here. Some of his teammates from Gamer Sensei have come out in support, and he's going to need a lot of that support. But in the end, those are just... it feels like it's crying to the abyss at this point when you're feeling like you're behind this much against a player of Purple's caliber.
It is definitely a very rough situation, and the really rough thing is these are the 2 decks his lineup should have been good against.
Right.
He has a lineup that's good against aggressive decks, but Purple's aggressive decks have won. His remaining deck here is this Highlander Priest because the Warlocks were banned. So now this matchup with the Dragon Combo Priest can be pretty good for the Dragon Combo Priest because you can sneak in your big burst kills with Divine Spirit Inner Fire, but the other matchups are going to be a bit tougher because he has to go through this deck every single time.
Well, the good news is on paper, this Highlander Priest still does have slightly unfavorable to very unfavorable matchups. So Sintolol still has a good chance to win the series relative to other positions being down 0-2. That being said, Purple has Kazakus and Raz of the Chain in his opening hand.
It's a very good draw in Purple's opening hand here. Sintolol, though, has a very good draw himself. He has Netherspite Historian plus Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake is one of his more powerful minions in the matchup because it does have 4 attack and high health. Only really vulnerable to silence effects from the opposing priest.
I feel like the series has just gotten started in 15 minutes or less.
Oh my god, I kind of wish Sintolol took the Temperus. He really snap-took the Twilight Drake, and Twilight Drake is great.
It's probably the right
matchup. It probably is right because you can coin Twilight Drake into Twilight Drake
Yes.
now, whereas before he didn't have a great option. But Temperus is actually good in this matchup. It may sound crazy.
All right, slow down, Kibler.
I'm not kidding. It's good.
Yeah,
because they can't kill you easily, and you can set up a 2-turn kill quite easily against them. I am not kidding. And there's no joking around. It's good.
Save the memes for the streams, Kibler.
Not even the meme. It's good. I mean, this is also good, and it's good faster is the thing. It fills out Sintolol's curve, so he can play Drake into Drake and put a lot of pressure on Purple. But if he actually already had plays over these turns, I think Temperus is a very real consideration there.
Duly noted. I mean, you know what? That's why I watch your stream very often, man. To see you pull out the Temperus stuff. But if you have, anything up to $1 million on the line, that is a lot to ask for.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying
to consider.
It would have been sweet. And it's a very real choice. But anyway, back to the actual game going on. Yeah, the second Twilight Drake coming down, putting a lot of pressure on Purple here.
The Kazakus potion, I didn't see.
I think it was deal 5, gain 7.
Yeah, I didn't see the AoE one, but Raz is still a really good play here. And also, Purple picked up a silence.
Yes.
Very nice for one of the Drakes.
And yeah, he's going to go ahead and silence the larger of the Twilight Drakes.
Right. Prevent any kind of
some
value
of the 5
trade.
had gain 7, not deal 5. Okay.
Also prevents any weird cheese. If double Divine Spirit happened to be in the hand, that's immediately game over.
Yeah, that's one of the scary things from the Highlander Priest perspective here, is that there is the risk of dying at pretty much any moment when your opponent has access to Divine Spirit Inner Fire. And that's one of the things that makes these Twilight Drakes so scary, is that they have high health and have a attack value that makes it difficult for you to interact with them on their face. So you need to do what you can to neutralize their health here, which is why the silence effect was so good, to even just prevent that burst as well.
I mean, just look at how much life gain, or sorry, health buffs that Sinto has right now. 2 Cabal Talon Priests, Power Shield, Inner Fire. Like, he can set up to threaten Purple. But if Purple spends all of his removal, then Sinto can just wait for the next minion that sticks onto the board to pressure for a win.
And generally speaking, because the Highlander Priest has access to Shadow Word Death, as well as Anduin, you're usually better off trying to set up for a one big burst turn kill rather than set up, okay, I have a 10-10, I'm going, a 10 health guy, I'm going to inner fire that and hit you for 10.
Goodness. Purple just drew Shadow Reaper Anduin.
He's got all the tools.
But, I mean, if Sintolol picks up Divine Spirit, is this like a lethal potential?
He can buff this if he has Powered Shield this turn. That puts it to, what, 13, it'd be 26, 27, 28, 29. He would not have lethal.
It's close.
Well, he has circle healing too. What is the base value of this?
So it was a 4-7, and he gave it +3 health.
Yeah, so the value is 10, so it could be up to 20. That could be 28.
It'll be close. There'll be some fireworks for sure. I want to see a one-shot, one-kill with this Twilight Drake.
Oh, that's the entire point of what Sintolol is trying to do here, is get that burst kill, which is why it is so crucial for Purple to try to keep the health total of Sintolol's big minions down.
I mean, Sinto also has to be aware of the removal available from Purple then too. Knows that Psychic Scream could be a possibility, but with Silence already used.
Yeah, that is a 15 health Twilight Drake, so I imagine Purple's going to be trying to chip away at things here. Inner Fire is actually interesting.
Yeah.
Inner Fire.
Oh, wow, he's able
yes,
to utilize it.
Death.
And Death is opponent perfect mana usage. Sinto is devastated. All the buffs have been rendered useless. Purple glances and nods at Sinto.
Yeah, and we see Sinto's just devastated because he put.
Oh, no!
That would have been a lethal attack.
Yeah.
He would have
no
had
kidding.
Power Word Shield plus Divine Spirit Inner Fire. That would have been a 34 attack Twilight Drake. But Purple found the answer.
But, I mean, he can get back to the drawing board. It's not over yet. But here's the thing. Purple can now start putting counter pressure because of Shadow Reaper Anduin next few turns.
And crucially, because Sintolol's deck does not have access to real removal, it is a Potion of Madness, Wild Pyromancer deck for most of its removal effects. This 5/7 minion on Purple's side is actually going to keep chipping away at any minions that Sintolol plays. So it is difficult for Sintolol to retain a significant board position.
Shadow Reaper Anduin actually kind of works against Purple in this position with
does.
the 5-attack demon. And one thing you have to consider too is after Shadow Reaper Anduin, that is your way to deal with a big minion. Like, if your opponent's stacking a big minion at that point, it can be difficult to destroy it.
See Sintolol just shaking his head. He's got it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's going to take down the Twilight Drake with effectively just trading through. And now he's going to be able to pick away at all of Sintolol's minions with his hero power activations each turn. But as you mentioned, now Silence is gone. Anduin is gone. Death is gone. So Sintolol does have the ability, if he can find enough buffs to put on a minion, to just throw a bunch of buffs on, say, this Talon Priest, and just get the pressure on.
Shadow Vision's
for another Divine Spirit.
Right.
I think that is... No, that's another Shadow.
I don't think so. I think it was Inner Fire. That was
okay,
off.
yeah, so... Yeah, he's just going to make a gigantic Talon Priest. And now this is his plan. He is going to utilize the fact that Purple is out of big removal to try to get this Talon Priest to finish the game.
There is one removal. It's the biggest of everything from Priest. It's Psychic Scream.
Still there.
It's a possibility, but it's not in the hand. So Purple doesn't have every possible answer yet. And we still have a game.
Yeah, and there's still the possibility that Sintolol just finds another Divine Spirit, because one of those was from Shadow Vision.
Okay, Purple not even going to be bothered with it. He has Prophet Valen in hand, so I think he's going to try and set up the best kill potential that he can. Novice is just more damage.
I hope you like my invention.
Can you pick up a cheaper spell with the Prophet Valen combos? Acolyte draw as well. Would you even want to maybe even draw with the Acolyte?
I think there's some argument there.
Because, I mean, I think he wants to set up for the Prophet Valen combos, because he just needs to find a one-mana spell, right? To guarantee that his opponent can't heal out of it.
Shadow Vision. Oh! Divine Spirit is lethal here. We see Sintolol give a little look.
There's Mass Dispel, Divine Spirit, Potion Madness, and Inner Fire left. There's not another Shadow Visions. So there's 4 options.
So there's only one possible combination that does not win the game. There it is, Divine Spirit. 44 damage Talon Priest coming in to put Sintolol on the board.
You can have your Raza on 5. You can have your Andrew on 8. I've got a 44-44. That is game 3 over Sintolol, and a breath of fresh air has entered this best of 5. Sintolol stays alive in this series.
And Purple, he felt like this difficult matchup was within his grasp, but one card turns around.
What's going to happen in game number 4? We'll find out. Can Sintolol complete the comeback, or will Purple end it? More after this.
What the hell is an error 14? Come on!
Easy, lad!
Hey.
Hey, brave as you are, you cannot defeat an evil such as this alone. Let us consult the writings of the user guide.
Every time I go to print, though. Seriously.
Good. Succumb to the darkness. Drink the potion. Claim your destiny.
Not helping, Gul'dan.
Behold! The wisdom of the user guide. Again with the user guide. Okay, let's see. Error 14. Error 14. Ah, right! Is the printer connected to a source of power?
Yes.
Okay, great. If your IP address begins with 172, obviously,
It does.
Run the printer setup wizard.
Running setup wizard.
Blah, blah, blah. All right, I'll connect the router to the network.
Router to the network.
Never gonna work. Clear the cache.
Clearing the... Hey, Betty. How are you? Just using the printer, printing stuff. Cache cleared!
Make sure the drivers are enabled, and you should be able to!
Yes, here we go!
Well played, lad! A victory is yours.
Close.
You win this time.
That's right, printer, you don't own me! What? No, 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 no. No, what is an error 15?
Try smacking it again! You gotta smack it! No, we're close. You're very close. Ink on paper will be ours.
You just don't get it, Uther.
Uther does not get it. Well met.
I'm Sintolol, 22 years old from Bad Vilbel, Germany, and I will represent Gamer Sensei at the Hearthstone World Championship here in Amsterdam. I don't know if it gives an advantage. At least I'm not jet lagged. I had a 45-minute flight, which is very convenient. And I really like Amsterdam, so I'm happy it's here. I play Hearthstone for probably maybe like 2 hours, but if they're open cups or season end, 10 to 20 hours a day. The longest session I ever played was probably like 30 hours. My favorite thing about Hearthstone is when a new expansion hits and I can create new stuff, new decks, just think about stuff. That's cool. The most important quality to be a great Hearthstone player is probably just don't be too stupid and you're good to go.
Well, you see, Sintolol has certainly put in the time, even up to 30 hours straight. That is voluntarily, by the way. Sintolol says he loves grinding. He said he's gonna miss the Open Cups of 2017 heading into 2018's new HCT year.
Yeah, he just loves playing non-stop Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And this matchup here is going to be perhaps a long one. We have the Highlander Priest from Purple still looking for a win, while Sintolol is on Jade Druid.
Yes, this Medivh the Guardian is very symptomatic of Sinto's entire lineup. It's filled with a lot of greed packages. Later today, we're going to see Frozen play a similar idea in the lineup strategies on what he wanted to do, playing Control Mage and trying to like disrupt your opponent's tempo-oriented decks. But the big thing is that Frozen plays a lot more of a leaner strategy, much more removal-centric. Sinto's playing huge threats, like way over the top as necessary, so that way he can also bust Control, which wasn't exactly the case, but still worked out okay.
Yeah, and Wild Growth, not on turn 2, but still good. Still bridges him into his Nourish turn, which is very crucial. While Purple doesn't have any of the key cards for his own strategy right now, but does have the card draw online with this Loot Hoarder and Acolyte of Pain.
Right. The key card, of course, still very much the things that we're talking about with Malfurion and the Pestilent, branching past with the Armor Game. But very importantly, Sintolol is not playing the Oaken Summons for additional 6 armor.
Yeah, he is playing a more sort of traditional old school style of Jade Druid, which does mean that he is more vulnerable to burst damage. We saw a number of players kind of try the get out of range of damage version of Jade Druid against Highlander Priest. In fact, yesterday, Kalento was at 40-something, but Samuel Sal was still able to burn him out in a single turn. So Sinto's version, though, with Medivh, is more focused on trying to be proactive and put the Highlander Priest on the back foot, so they're not able to just spend that time assembling all that damage.
So now we enter a pretty important juncture of this game. Sinto knows that Xayah was ripped out the top and there's a potion. There's a possibility that if he plays Medivh, he's playing directly into a transform polymorph potion and gives his opponent a draw and removes his Medivh instead. So I think he's evaluating whether or not he wants to pivot off the Medivh curve, which was what we were expecting. And it looks like he's just gonna go for it anyways, calculating percentages, but also saying, even if that's the case, is my chances to win still better by doing this?
Well, that was what Purple was expecting too, and you know he does have that transform, I believe, available, right?
No,
it was freeze. Did he freeze?
Deal. I think it was summon a 5/5 and deal a damage.
I actually didn't see the tail end, but I saw something enemy minion. Is that deal 5 damage? No, it's just deal damage to any target.
We will look.
Oh, it is.
Polymorph.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, and then he just attacked in here. Oh, he doesn't want to risk overdrawing.
Yes,
that's what's happening.
yes.
Okay.
That's actually a very astute observation for Purple. A lot of times people would autopilot.
Right.
But you know, he's firing all cannons.
Yeah, he already has a hand of 9 cards, and he'd run the risk of potentially overdrawing his Raza, which could be disastrous.
One of the more awkward things, of course, about the situation for Sinto is that he has spells to play, but he has 2 ultimate stations that he wants to use, and then he's going to run into hand space issues as well.
Branching Path is pretty strong here, though, because he can just gain armor, which helps empty his hand, upgrades the Spell Stone, which he can then use, which will open up hand space for him as well.
Right.
Ooh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, he can still win in the fatigue plan even if he uses his Jade Idols.
Yeah, the Astral Tiger there does give him an interesting option. Though immediately that's not a card he wants to draw, so that does die.
It does dilute his draws, actually, when it dies.
But now it's a 3/6. which means it's out of range of that Dragonfire.
Yeah. Actually, slightly inconvenient there because Purple would love to get that face damage.
Right.
in.
Though I don't know that Purple's necessarily going to pull the trigger on Dragonfire right now.
Right.
He's certainly afraid of the potential of the Infestation next turn.
Oh, he knows it's coming.
Yeah, it is definitely a setup that he is very concerned about here.
Right, and there's almost no way to play around it. So I think Purple's just going to let it happen and then try to hope that Sinto can't really pull a big 10-mana minion, but there are some pretty big heavy hitters. We're talking about Death Wings and things of that ilk.
Purple does have the ability to coin out Anduin next turn, so that can allow him to remove any really big thing that hits. Yeah, there's a 10-10. Aces Behemoth.
Intimidating.
Which does mean that he can use the Anduin here to take off the big hitters in this board.
Yeah.
Does leave Sintolol, though, with more ability to reload because there's so many cards in his hand. The threat of Anduin killing his big boards is gone. So there's really just the Dragonfire and Psychic Scream he has to fight through now. And crucially, Purple does not have Razi yet. So Purple's own ability to turn the corner and start dealing damage is no longer here, not yet here.
He does have Lyra and Radiant Elemental, so the moment he gets Razo, that thing is going to go off. Sento, in the meantime, hasn't actually ramped his Jade significantly. His next Jade card, I think, is going to be a 2/2. So even Aya is supposed to be much more threatening at this phase of the game, but it's not nearly as good as it usually is.
Well, he's still got a lot of time, though, because he's not really under pressure here, and he can just keep going wide and build up a threatening board here. It looks like he may be deciding not to play that Jade Idol. He recognizes that despite the fact that he does have reload ability, he'd rather wait to get his second round of threats with that Jade Idol after the fact.
Wait for the Hash Tiger to come back.
I kind of want to draw it right now, just be funny to me. Tyrant. So there's still, this is still the first Jade Idol for Sintolol, so he doesn't need to shuffle at this point.
Yeah, he can double Jade for a 4/4 and a 5/5. He does run into a little bit of awkward hand issues, though, because of the cost of Spreading Plague and because Priest isn't really be playing a lot of minions. So there is an opportunity for him to maybe play Spreading Plague, a free Arcane Tyrant, and then Jade Idol instead.
Yeah, the necessity of getting his hand size down so he can play Ultimate Infestation without the risk of overdrawing his Jade Idols does mean that he may want to make some otherwise relatively inefficient plays leading up to that point.
Dragonfire Potion's been used, Anduin's been used, the big AoE left is Psychic Scream. I guess Circle of Healing with the Alchemist Soul Priest is also worth considering as well. All of those answer the Jade plays. And it looks like Sinto is going to go for the Spreading Plague, but instead of the Jade Idol, he's going to play Fandral for tempo. I don't hate this either. There's some pretty big payoff if Purple doesn't answer it.
Well, now Sinto's in a position where even if, by not playing the Jade Idol here, even if he Ultimate Infestations next turn and then overdraws Jade Idol, he's not out of Jade Idols. Because he does end up with 5 cards in hand plus the 5 drawn from Infestation. So he could draw, well, actually he only has that's his only copy of Arcane Tyrant. I was going to say he could draw an Arcane Tyrant. But now with the Jade Idol remaining in his hand, he doesn't run the risk of having that 1 in 10 that he hits his Jade Idol as the last card and overdraws it and potentially runs out of threats.
Looks like Purple is just gonna settle for removing minions and trying to draw cards, get some slight board presence here. Now Sinto can kind of go nuts. A lot of times you evaluate if you even want to shuffle Jade Idols, but if you're gonna set up for the Ultimate Infestation, it feels like it's a reasonable time to go for a Jade Idol with Fandral.
Yeah, the Jade Idol here with the Fandral does give him, the assurance again that he's not going to run the risk of running out of idols, as well as making a 5/5 thanks to the choose both from Fandral.
Sintol's thinking about whether or not he wants to attack the Curious Glimmerroot, and I think one thing in the back of his mind is also how bad is his board to get Psychic Scream if I want to reduce the amount of bad draws. But also getting the pressure in too. He's got 16 damage just on the board.
So Purple now I think is looking to see if he can find Circle of Healing to pair with his Akanai. Does not find it. Powered Shield, Mind Blast, and Spirit Lash. None of these are particularly powerful here. The Powered Shield at least potentially digs a little bit to look for Psychic Scream, look for Raza.
Shadowy thoughts.
It's also a cheap spell to enable additional activations of his hero power.
That's right.
But without Raza, you know, he does it to pay 2 every single time, which is much less efficient in terms of actually getting damage in on his opponent.
The shadows grow short.
Purple opting just to cycle the Binding Heal. At this point, he's desperate to find some action.
Yeah, he needs help here. He needs to find something that will actually enable him to turn the tide. You know, he is missing key cards.
He knows that there's a big threat of Nourish and some more Jade Idols.
I mean, then there's Ultimate Infestation that can really shut him down here.
Yep, 13 plus the Infestation is 18 damage, and Purple will be at critical stages of life at that point. That's assuming, of course, Sinto chooses not to trade into any minions. And then we have to think, man, Purple's already used so much of his removal, Dragonfire Potion and his Shadowy Branduin. Even if he picked up Psychic Scream, you know, what if Raza's in the very bottom of his deck? How does he find the damage then?
What to do?
Sinto being very careful, meticulous onto how much he's going to extend the board here.
The Infestation has to be attractive here because you end up spending your turn playing the 10-mana card, which obviously is very difficult to find opportunities to get it in there. And yeah, fills up his hand, gets damage in, removes the Cleric, so there's no risk of a circle possibly drawing a bunch of cards for Purple and finding what he needs. And yeah, the reload here leaves Sintolol with the ability to coon into a bunch of Jades the following turn even. Really needs to find something off this Powered Shield. Is it Psychic Scream? No, it's Death.
Staring at 18 right now, can remove some of those that's onto the board, chooses to instead extend a little bit further, but without that free hero power, this is starting to become kind of desperate times here for Purple, unless, is this double swipe enough? I think it is.
Yeah, I think this is going to open up the board and leave the Jade Golems to march to victory. So Sintolol was down 0-2, but he has evened things up 2 games apiece.
That's right, and now Purple, with his comfortable 2-0 lead, might drop 3 games in a row with his best deck.
And Purple felt this was a tough matchup coming in, but had to be feeling good when he was up 2 games to 0, but now probably feeling about as bad as he was at the start.
That's right, and we're kind of mentioning this.
Sinto fans, though, they're feeling good.
Yeah, his teammates are going nuts in the crowd. And you got to be feeling good if you're Sinto, because you recognize that it was kind of difficult to get a win with the Highlander Priest over, get a win over Highlander Priest consistently with 3 games. But now you're just down to 1 game. It's going to come down to Big Spell Mage up against Highlander Priest, which is a little more even than you think.
This is a very interesting matchup. I have played a lot of Big Spell Mage, and one of the matchups that is obviously most important to try to find ways to win is against Highlander Priest. And after this, though, we're going to have more matches today. Surrender and Omega Zero will be coming up in the following match, but not before we find out the resolution of this one.
That's right. That is going to begin Group D matches, and of course, after that, we'll be playing the winners matches, followed by eliminations. A couple people will be going to the quarterfinals. A couple are going to be sent home. Sinto does not want to be one of those players, and he's been grinding for so long, and almost to the point where in Hearthstone, where people use grinder as a pejorative connotation, trying to say that, like, yeah, you're nothing but a grinder, you're not an actual competitive player. But I think a lot of people have been throwing off that notion, and he wouldn't be the first one, but certainly be the one doing on the biggest stage.
Ooh, the Arcanologist is a pretty crucial card in Sintolol's opening hand. He actually only plays a single copy, because there are only 2 secrets in the deck. But Frostlich Jaina, probably the most important card in the entire deck. So the way that the Big Spell Mage generally tries to beat the Highlander Priest is by getting Jaina down and essentially just keeping yourself alive. With the lifesteal from the Water Elementals and the armor you can gain from Arcane Artificer, you can keep yourself out of range of the burst potential of the Priest. And thanks to Ice Block, even if they do have the 40 damage turn, you can then Artificer, Ice Block again, replay things that are gaining the armor and getting you out of range. Which is one of the reasons that I actually think that Sintolol's build of this deck is a little unusual. Because he has a lot of different choices than many of the versions that we have seen. He's actually playing a very threat-heavy version of Big Spell Mage.
Oh my goodness.
There was one of the potential key cards right there. The Dirty Rat in this matchup can potentially hit key minions such as... that still wins. That still wins. Oh no, it doesn't. It's a 7. I was looking the other way. Yeah. And the things that we love to have happening here.
Okay.
The Dirty Rat on the Raza, not going to happen.
These guys are playing a mile a minute right now, but there's a lot that just happened this first 3 turns of this game. First, Purple had very clear turn 3, but he knew that Sintolol will be trying to snipe, and he needs to set up for his Raza, because that is his main win condition. So he held into a turn 3 play. Sinto went for it, and then was not able to get it out, and now Purple is coined out the Raza because he knew that was the utmost importance.
Yeah, Sintolol is playing 2 copies of Dirty Rat, which is used in this matchup to try to snipe specifically Raza and Balin. The Raza obviously gives you the super efficient hero powers that allows you to actually just burn someone down. Balin allows the burst that can outgrind the life gain of the Water Elementals from Jaina. But here, Purple able to protect his Raza and now has it online. And Kazakis is also a very powerful option in this matchup in somewhat different ways than some others, because being able to resurrect big minions and give them plus health is one of the strongest things you can often do against Mage, because they have so much damage-based removal.
Really interesting. Purple opting to go instead for the Curious Glimmeroon. I wonder how useful that Polymorph will be later on too, considering that there are big targets like the and anything that comes out of the Atiesh. Lines up pretty well into turn 6 Meteor removal for Sinto. And one of the big things too that you mentioned is how much life gain can Sinto generate this game. He's got ways to buff it up directly with Alex Straza. He also has Frostlich Jaina to continue to get life steal with the Water Elementals. That'll be the big tug of war. We mentioned Jade Druid tries to play armor style in order to outlast all the bursts of the Priest. Sinto, without a lot of card draw, might not be able to get it.
One of the big problems for the Mage in this matchup is card draw. Many of the versions of Big Spell Mage choose not to play with Arcane Intellect because it's a potential poor hit with Dragon's Fury or Raven Familiar. And in particular, the fact that Sinto did miss with his Raven Familiar means he played a 2/2 for 2, which is not a very powerful minion. He's down a little bit in resources comparatively. His card draw relies on 2 Acolyte of Pain, and Acolyte of Pain can potentially only get him a single card if Purple uses removal on it, like even just Silence or Shadow Word Pain. There's not many other targets.
Is someone injured?
One caveat I say to that is that Frostlich Jaina gives you a lot of longevity. So if you can just generate resources off your hero powers in that way, you'll be sitting pretty. But look at this play for Purple, being able to draw multiple cards this turn. Streaking ahead of Sintolol into the depths of his deck, as I think he's been waiting for a while to see what he can do with this Kazakis potion, the timing of it. Gonna look for card draw and get that Shadow Reaper Anduin online.
Yeah, Purple has held on to this Kazakis for quite a while, and I wonder if his thought process is that he wants to have the option of a big Kazakis potion late in the game. Now Sintolol, he is in the problem that you often find as Big Spell Mage in this matchup, in that you have a hand full of a bunch of removal, and it's not really advancing your game plan very much. He's able to potentially Blizzard or Polymorph or Dragon's Fury here, and it can kill some stuff on the board, but the big problem is that Purple is just continuing to generate resources. And if Purple is able to get to that Kazakis, get a big potion, All right, so that was actually a fantastic Fury for Sintolol, by the way.
Perfect.
The fact that the fact that he was able to clear off the board and keep a threat in play is a very big deal.
Yeah, and I think he even was okay with getting like an ice block reveal, because then he'll kill off the Ackland.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the Northshire Cleric, and shutting off that card draw. And it is sort of important for Sinto to even hold on to these removals too, not just throw out Polymorph and Blizzard nilly-willy, because Frosted Jaina is able to utilize those health breakpoints to summon Water Elementals every turn.
Yeah, once you get to the late stage of the game and Jaina comes down, the texture of the game changes substantially, because your removal suddenly becomes threats. And the priest doesn't really want to play things onto the board to potentially give you Water Elemental, because that life gain from Water Elemental and just the pressure from the Water Elementals is how you ultimately end up winning.
I wonder.
It's also some interesting points, like Purple may actually want to play his Kazakus and then play Spirit Lash if he's going to play the Kazakus this turn. Because it gets damage on his own guy, heals himself a little bit, also means that Blizzard plus Ping from a Jaina would not create a Water Element off his Kazakus. Yeah, he's going for 10. He's going big.
He just wants to summon big pressure, very similar to how Control Mage struggled in the past. He picks so fast I couldn't even see what was his first option.
I mean, resummon is often what you want. Well, he took, okay, draw 3.
Okay.
Draw 3 and freeze. So the idea here is that the freeze can give him the ability to shut down Water Elementals. That's what he's really afraid of, the threat of Sintolol generating a board of a bunch of Elementals and getting pressure in on him while also keeping himself alive. Though the life steal obviously isn't that big a deal, since Purple has not found Anduin, and Sintolol is still at 30 life.
Tough spot for Purple. Looks like he's going to Polymorph. Try and control the state of the board, and if this gets out of hand for him, it's going to be difficult for him to come back, because he has to fall to the lower part of the bracket. He was kind of talking to us a little bit about his thoughts on the regional differences as he goes up in a group against 2 top European players.
Europe's not better than North America. Like that's a match I'll gladly take, and I think that we have at the top level we have a crew on NA that can beat the crew on EU. It's very close. How like HCT points work, there's just more active competitive players on EU, but at the top level they don't have more good players than we do.
So Purple very outspoken about the pride in North America. Interestingly enough, the top point earners for both America and Europe actually were tied. It was 148 total.
All right, well, the 10-cost potion here. He specifically, by the way, played that Potion of Madness last turn, which may have looked weird, to empty his hand somewhat, so he did not run the risk of overdrawing.
Right. It looked very weird. It's almost if he's trading his card just for 1 damage. But in this scenario, Purple really needs to find a Shadow Reaper Endo to have a chance in this game. Because now Sinto can just kind of play the long resource generation battle. And one thing to consider too is, if Purple doesn't have enough time to even get Shadow Reaper Endo because of how much deeper he is into the deck. He doesn't have the fatigue option.
Still no end with here. The spell damage plus the Dragonfire does clear up this board, draws Purple into the card. Still no Anduin. Chooses not to play the Novice Engineer because he does not want to feed Jaina.
Hey, speak to me.
Yep, very astute play. Autopiloting there would have created free Water Elemental. Ooh. He can kill off his own minions here with Wild Pyromancer plays. Shower Pain would deny a card draw too on the Acolytes.
Shadow Pain is one of your key ways to deal with Water Elementals, though, and it's pretty important. I wouldn't be surprised actually to see him just silence this potentially to prevent additional card draws while saving the Pain to potentially get him a solution to the threat of Water Elemental. And only 2 spells left in his deck. Finds a Mind Blast over the Psychic Scream. Needs to get the burst damage. And Sintolol here with Artificer in hand, even if he, the damage does come, has some tools to get that life total back up.
Embrace the void.
Purple going to utilize his Alchemist Soul Priest as the way to draw, and Shadow Reaper into it. Bottom 4 cards in Purple's deck now.
And the big problem here is that he may just not have enough time. That, you know, drawing the Anduin so late means that he only has so many turns to assemble the damage, and so many more opportunities for Sintolol to be able to assemble his own threats and get his life total. And now,
Starting to slip away from Purple, and Sinto's getting closer to the finish line.
I hope you like my invention.
and that is
Wow.
Velen. That's not Anduin.
We've all seen it before. Shadow Reaper Anduin being the bottom cards of the deck. Sinto has so much time and so many options. Boss's Jaina can do that for you. And of course, he has his own counter push measures. He has Alex Straza, he has Dragon Caller Alana. Those are fantastic options to put pressure onto the Priest. And maybe even end the game.
With the Anduin so deep in Purple's deck, Sintolol has had so much time to assemble all of these tools. This is actually one of the things that's interesting about Sinto's particular build. He's actually very threat dense with the Dragon Caller Alana, with the Arcane Tyrants. But against Priest in particular, it's difficult to find time to play them because so many of Priest's tools end up being kind of proactive and reactive. Specifically, Anduin is so good at clearing off Dragon Caller Alana while actually presenting meaningful threat. Yeah, here Sintolol recognizes he's just going to go ahead and get the Artificer down. There's not much time for Purple to play reactive cards to this. Right. If he does play a Anduin this turn, he's going to have to ping off the Artificer. There's Anduin.
He gets Anduin.
He finally finds it with 2 cards left in his deck.
Right. His last card is Mind Blast, so he'll have 2 copies of Mind Blast with some real big potential. In fact, he doesn't even need that for the burst, considering that he has Prophet Valen and Radiant Elemental.
Skulking Geist? Skulking Geist is very powerful in this matchup quite often because, yeah, you just take some of the resources away from the Priest. There's only the 1 copy of Binding Heal, but that represents 4 damage. And what Sintolol is trying to do here is just run Purple out of resources, out of damage. And now Purple has got to the last card in his deck. And Lyra's a big, important card here because he needs to be able to assemble more resources than he has right now. He's not going to be able to do enough damage to kill Sintolol through the armor gain and the ice blocks and the Alex Straza.
Yeah, so here comes the charge. Purple getting ahead of the game, trying to see if he can get a lot of these spells out of his hand. Shadowward Hard not going to be much use. He kills his own minions. Shadow Essence is going to be nothing. It's a complete whiff. Spirit Lash can help draw another card and get more damage in. I mean, Purple's putting a lot of damage right now. Inner Fire keeps the chain going.
Yeah. Just need to find 9 straight 1-cost cards.
Oh, interesting. Greater Healing Potion comes to the hand for Purple. Purple realizing this is desperate times.
Yeah.
Immediate concession. Sintolol has completed the reverse sweep. And we'll move on to the winner's bracket match.
And we talked about the power of Highlander Mage so many times over the course of this event. Purple struggling 3 games in a row to take down a win with it. Sintolol comes away with the victory.
It was looking grim, down 0-2. Everything went wrong in the first 2 games. Purple's draw was immense and insurmountable, but with enough patience and tactical decision-making and an awesome lineup, frankly, Sintolol moves on, and it's an all-European showdown in the winner's match. And somewhere in the talent room, Saudel's wiggling really happy. Raven is waiting with our winner.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Congratulations, Sinto. That was a hell of a series. You were going in favored. Purple actually said he believed he had the hardest first match of anyone in the tournament. After the first game or 2, how were you feeling in the matchup?
Oh, Callus F1 2 felt great. I also loved the double Lotus. That was really fun.
Okay, so everyone having fun in this matchup. When you turned the corner with the Priest, because it seemed like Purple had answers to everything you were putting forward, especially when you drew the Divine Spirit the turn after your Drake got dealt with. Once you got that win, were you feeling way more confident about the matchup in general, the series overall?
Not really.
Okay, why?
There's still 2 hard matchups to go. I mean, I'm favorite in the Druid one, but the Mage is tough. I'm happy that Anduin was his second to last card.
Okay, so you know, you're looking pretty good. You're helping Europe out with some wins as Europe's been struggling overall. But that last game, the Mage game going to the Priest, was it just the Anduin at the very end that really secured the win for you there? Do you think if the Anduin came any earlier, it would be a huge problem?
That would have been more than a huge problem. I would have lost, yeah.
That is a pretty big problem, but thanks again and congratulations. Give it up for Sintolol. We're going to check in with TJ and Admirable.
Thanks very much, Raven. That's right, Sintolol bringing a bold lineup and taking a pretty bold victory, Admirable.
There's no question about that. A 3-0 on the end to back things up. The defensive mage deck's looking very strong in this tournament.
Yeah, we're going to see more defensive mage decks coming up in a bit. But for now, Sintolol, he's on top.
Coming up, lay down your weapon.